Hello and welcome to another session of Let's Learn German. I hope you revised the contents of the previous session and you're ready to learn something new in this session. In this session, we are going to do a category of verb called imperative. Well, as you can see, imperative, as I told you, is a very special category of verb because it is further divided into three categories, which are request, which is in German known as bitte, command, which is in German known as Aufforderung, and also in the third category as an advice, which is friendly and familiar, and the word for advice in German is Ratschlag. So, this special category of imperative has got three subcategories, and an imperative is always built with second person pronouns. You are already familiar with second person pronouns. They are du, which is in singular, formal, ihr, which is informal in plural, and sie, which is second person plural as well as singular. We are going to learn how verbs are constructed with these three pronouns for imperative verbs, especially in these three subcategories. Now, let us look how an imperative sentence is made, especially for the category request or bitte. Now, please look at these sentences. Machen Sie bitte die Tür zu. Machst du bitte die Tür zu? Macht ihr bitte die Tür zu? As you can see, these sentences have verb machen, they have the pronomen sie, and here we have the noun die Tür, which means door, and as you know, what we have here at the end are the suffix from the verb zu machen, and you know that zu machen is a trennbares verb or a separable verb, and we have conjugated the verb here with the respective pronoun and taken the ending from the each pronoun. And as you can see, the position of the verb here is first. So, let me tell you that in an imperative sentence, the position of the verb is always first. I would like to tell you that this is a special category of verb, that is why the position of the verb is at the first position. However, as you know, the verb is always at the second position in a sentence. The verb is at the second position in a W question and at the first position in a yes or no question. So, please don't get confused while making sentences or questions. Please remember that the position of the verb changes according to the context. Also, if you notice here at the end of the sentence, we have here an exclamation mark. Well, that is how we identify an imperative sentence. An imperative sentence would always carry an exclamation mark at the end. Also, I would like to tell you something more about these sentences. In an imperative sentence, the ending of the verb does not remain always with the pronoun. So, in this sentence, machen Sie bitte die Tür zu, the ending of the verb and the pronoun remains, whereas here the ending of the verb is removed, as you can see, and also for any imperative sentence made with du, the pronoun du is also removed from the sentence. So, the sentence does not carry any ending as well as the pronoun for the du imperative sentence. Also, in this sentence, macht ihr bitte die Tür zu, we don't require the pronoun. As you can see, I am removing the pronoun. However, for any imperative sentence made with ihr, the ending T is retained. So, as you can see, we transformed two sentences where in the sentence which had du, the pronoun do was removed and also the ending was removed, whereas the sentence which had ear, the pronoun ear was removed, however the ending t was retained. So, this is how the imperative sentences are constructed. So, as I told you, imperative sentences are always constructed in present tense for the pronouns do, ear, sie, and for imperative sentences constructed with sie, the ending of the verb en as well as the pronoun is retained, whereas for imperative sentences constructed with do, the ending is not retained, also the pronoun is not retained, whereas for imperative sentences constructed with ear, the pronoun is not retained, however the ending is retained for the verb. Also, I would like to tell you that all the imperative sentences carry an exclamation mark at the end, which is also the signal that the given sentence is an imperative sentence and the verb always begins at the first position. Now, let us look at the other category of imperative verb, which is command, or in German they are called Aufforderung. Here also we have three sentences: kommen Sie hier, kommst du hier, kommt ihr hier. And as you see here, at the end we have an exclamation mark which tells us that this is an imperative sentence. The verb is at the first position, and since you know from the first segment that for the pronoun sie we retain the ending, but for the pronoun do we do not retain the ending of the verb as well as we remove the pronoun, and for the sentence which has got ear we remove the pronoun also, but we retain the ending. So, when we look at these verbs kommen, kommt, with the ending here and with the absence of ending here, we can identify whether the sentence here is for the sie pronoun or du pronoun or for the ear pronoun. As I told you here that imperative is used either with du, sie or ear and always in present tense. Now, let us look at the third category of imperative verb, which is a friendly or familiar advice, which is known as Ratschlag in German. So, let us look at the sentences. Machen Sie mehr Urlaub. Urlaub means vacation. Machst du mehr Urlaub? Macht ihr mehr Urlaub? So, since you are familiar with the construction of an imperative verb, you know that with an exclamation mark we identify an imperative verb, and as usual we remove certain parts in a sentence which are there. For example, for this part machen Sie mehr Urlaub, we neither remove the ending nor the pronomen. However, for any imperative verb which begins with which has du, we remove the ending as usual and also remove the pronoun, and imperative sentences made with ear we retain the ending, however we remove the pronoun. So, now you are really familiar with the construction of an imperative sentence. An imperative sentence will always have the verb at the first position, it will have an exclamation mark at the end. For sentences which have do, there would be only verb without the ending and no pronoun, and sentences which have ear, there would be ending of the verb without the pronoun, and also for sentences which has sie, there would be a pronoun sie, capital S, and the ending of the verb. So, as you can see, imperative is not that difficult. Well, you have to always remember that there are basic rules to make an imperative sentence. Now, let us see how imperative sentences are used for different categories of verbs which you are already familiar. For example, regular verbs, irregular verbs, etc. Now, let us look how imperative sentences are constructed for two important verbs, haben and sein. You know, haben and sein are very important verbs and you have already done the conjugation of these verbs. Now, let us look the conjugation of haben in an imperative sentence. For the pronoun sie, we have haben Sie Geduld. Geduld here means patience. Now, as you can see, we have the pronoun here as well as the ending of the verb en. Now, let us look at this sentence, hab Geduld. You know that any imperative sentence with du does not carry the pronoun nor it carries the ending. Also, if you look, what is the important thing which you see here? You see that the verb haben is retained here without its ending. If you remember, the verb haben with du is always conjugated as hast. However, here haben is not conjugated, only the ending is removed and the main part of the verb is retained. Now, let us look at this sentence with ear, habt Geduld. So, if you see here the ending is retained and if you remember the verb haben is always conjugated with the pronoun ear as habt. So, if you see closely, only sie and ear follow the conjugation pattern of haben respectively, whereas du does not follow the conjugation pattern of haben. It does not take the ending and it retains only the main form of the verb. Now, let us look how imperative sentences are constructed with the verb sein. Let us look how the verb sein is used to make imperative sentences. You know the verb sein means to be. Let us look at this imperative sentence with sie. Seien Sie leise. The word leise means to be silent. Now, let us look how the verb is conjugated. If you remember, with sie, the conjugation of sein is sind. But do you see the same verb conjugation here? No. Here, the verb sein is conjugated in a different manner. With sie, it is sein. Here, for the case of du pronoun, here we have sei, and for the pronoun ear, we have seid. So, if you see, only for the pronouns sie and du, sein is conjugated as seien and sei, whereas for ear, the verb sein is retained in its conjugated form. So, whenever you are making an imperative sentence with sein, remember that the verb with sie is conjugated as sein, with du sei, and with ear seid. Now, let us look at some other verbs and how imperative sentences are made with verbs which are irregular or regular. Now, let us look how imperative sentences are made with irregular verbs. Here, we are going to look at certain verbs where the vowel change from E to I. So, here we have 4 verbs. You are familiar with the verbs. The verbs are lesen, essen, nehmen, geben. You are already familiar with the conjugation pattern with all the pronouns. You know that these verbs change their form where the E or the A is changed into I. Now, let us see how these verbs are conjugated in the imperative sentence. Now, for the verb lesen, let us look at the sentence lesen Sie den Text. Well, as you see, with exclamation mark, an imperative sentence is made here, and the conjugation of the verb with the pronoun Z is an, so which is retained. Now, let us look at the conjugation of the verb lesen with du. Lies den text. So, as you know, here we remove the ending of the verb, and for the pronoun du, the imperative sentence does not contain for the verb lesen the alphabet T. As you know, we have the ending st for the verb lesen. We only take s and remove the T, and as you know, we do not have the pronoun du also. Now, for the sentence lest den text, it follows the similar pattern like the verb conjugation of lesen with ear with T at the end, however, without the pronoun ear. Now, let us look at the verb essen. Here also, like in the previous case with lesen with pronoun Z, we have the verb essen Sie schnell. Schnell means fast, and the verb is conjugated according to the pronoun Z with the ending an and with an exclamation mark at the end. For the pronoun du, the imperative sentence is made ist schnell with an exclamation mark at the end and without the T, however, with SS. And for the pronoun ear, the imperative sentence is est schnell. So, the conjugation of the verb is retained here, however, without the pronoun. Now, let us look at the imperative sentence with nehmen. Nehmen Sie es. So, like essen and lesen, we have the same pattern with an as ending for the pronoun Z, and however, we have the ending nimm es, where we do not have the ending st like in the previous cases where for essen we had s and for lesen we also had s. So, any sentence which has nehmen with du, it will always have nimm as the form. Nehmt es is the form of imperative sentence for the pronoun ear, where T is retained without the pronoun ear. Now, let us look at the verb geben. Geben Sie das. Like in the previous sentences with pronoun Z, we have the ending en with the pronoun Z and an exclamation mark at the end, and for the pronoun du, we have gib das without st and without the pronoun du, and for the pronoun ear, we have the imperative sentence gebt das with the ending T. Now, if you see these examples, you can see that for all the verbs, the pattern is somewhat similar. However, change takes place especially for the imperative sentences made with du. Well, these sentences are just examples. Whenever you come across irregular verbs where there is a change of vowel from E to I, make sure that while writing the imperative sentence, the change of the vowel takes place properly and the ending is retained or not retained according to the pronoun. Now, let us look how imperative sentences are made again for irregular verbs where there is a change from A to A. Now, you are already familiar that irregular verbs like laufen, fahren and schlafen change their form when they are conjugated with the pronoun du. Now, let us look how imperative sentences for these verbs are made in case of Sie, du and ihr. With Sie, it is relatively simple like in the previous sentences. We have here laufen Sie schneller. Here we have the ending of the verb laufen, an attached to the pronoun Sie. So, is the case also for fahren, where we have the ending an with Z, and also for schlafen with ending an for the pronoun Z. So, for Z there is not any change in the sentence construction. So, we know that a imperative sentence is made with an exclamation mark at the end and the verb at the first position. However, there is a change happening for an imperative sentence made with pronoun du. If you remember, for the verb laufen, we conjugate it with du as läufst, where there is an umlaut here. If you see, there is no a here, that is a with umlaut, and there is no st ending also. So, for verb like laufen, fahren and schlafen, we never make any imperative sentence with an umlaut. So, apart from the absence of ending here, there is also no umlaut here. However, the conjugation of laufen with ear follows the pattern lauft. So, we retain the same conjugation of the verb here to make an imperative sentence. Now, let us look at how the verb fahren is used as an imperative sentence for du. Like laufen, we have fahren here without an umlaut and without the ending st, and the conjugation of the verb fahren with ear is retained here with the ending t. So, to make it as a imperative sentence. Now, for the verb schlafen, again the change is here for the pronoun du, where there is no umlaut for a and there is no ending st. However, there is the ending t for the pronoun here. So, as you can see, for irregular verbs where there is a change of vowel from a to a, there is not any umlaut in any of the verbs which are attached with du to make an imperative sentence. Now, let us do a small exercise based on what we have done in this session. In this exercise, the student would write the correct form of the verb based on the clues given in the bracket here. As you can see in the bracket, the verbs are given in the infinitive form along with the respective pronoun. The student is supposed to write the correct imperative form of the verb from the given clues. Now, let us look at the answers given by the student. The student has written here for the first sentence, habt keine Angst. The clue was that the verb has to be conjugated according to the pronoun ihr, and the answer is correct. Number 2, sei nicht so ungeduldig. Ungeduldig means impatient. Here, the student correctly wrote the imperative form of the verb sein based on the pronoun du. Kommen Sie mal wieder. Here, it was relatively easy, as you know that with the pronoun sie, the conjugation of the verb does not change and we have the ending of the verb en. So, the answer is correct. Ist langsamer. Here, the conjugation of the verb was supposed to be done on the basis of the pronoun du, and without the ending t, the student has written the correct answer. Seid ruhig. Here, the verb sein was supposed to be conjugated with the pronoun ihr, and the student has written the correct answer. for the sentence number 6, lies den Text vor. Here the verb was lesen, which was supposed to be conjugated with the pronoun du, and without the ending t. However, with ies, as you can see, the verb has been conjugated quite correctly. So, this answer is also correct. So, as you can see, learning imperative is not difficult. You should keep in mind if the verb is an irregular or a regular verb, and what are the changes taking place for the verbs, especially for verbs like sein, etc. So, please revise what we did in today's session, and as I always say, auf Wiedersehen, tschüss.